Hello. We are going to do day 12. So let me share my screen. All right. So day 12 is factor by grouping. And so when we do factor by grouping, and that's what goes on the first plate, factor by grouping. First step in any kind of factoring is to check for a GCF. Now, the GCF problems we're going to do at the end. So first we're going to do problems without a GCF, and then I'm going to show you what they look like with a GCF. And then of course, in mixed practice, you want to always check for a GCF, greatest common factor. So the first step, as the name implies, it is factor by grouping. So you have to factor out the GCF from each group. So we're going to make groups and we're going to factor out a greatest common factor. And so let me show you what I mean. I'm going to make little groups. So there's always going to be 4 terms when we do factor by grouping, and I'm going to split it into 2 groups. And so I'm going to show you on the second one, it's the same thing. You split it into 4 groups. So for each of my groups, I am going to look for the GCF, the greatest common factor. And we talked about that last class when we did the day 11 notes. And so if you need a refresher, go watch day 11. So the GCF, when I take a look at my first problem, or sorry, my first group, what I notice is that I have a 2. So I'm going to look at the number parts first, and then I'm going to look at the X parts or the variable part. So I have a 2 and a 6. The biggest number that I can pull out of both of those is going to be a 2. Pull out a 2. And then I have an X squared and an X. Well, the most I can pull out is an X. I'm going to look at my second group. So the number in front of the X, if there isn't a number, it's always 1. So it's the only number that you can divide into both 1 and 3. 1. And they don't both have an X, so all you can pull out is a 1. Anytime you pull out a GCF, it goes out into the front. And so I'm going to show you with arrows. This is going to go out into the front. So out into the front, I'm going to get a 2X, and then I'm going to write down what I have left. And so if I divide, 2 divided by 2 becomes 1. X squared, and I'm taking 1X away, so I just have an X. Then I'm going to look at the 6X. 6 divided by 2 is 3. It's positive 3. And then if I have an X and I'm dividing out an X, I don't have any more X's. For my second group, I'm factoring out a positive 1. So I'm going to put positive 1. And I know it's positive because I didn't pull out a negative. And then I'm going to write down, if I divide anything by 1, I get what I started with. So I'm going to end up with X plus 3. The goal to factor by grouping is that you're going to get 2 sets of parentheses, and they're going to be the same. And so that's this last step. The goal is to get 2 factors in the parentheses that are the same. If you don't, you did something wrong. Every time it works out like this. So as soon as you figure out what the 2 set of parentheses are that are exactly the same, so in this case, it's X plus 3 and X plus 3. They're the same. So this is another GCF. So this is factoring out another GCF, and I'm going to rewrite it 1 time out in front. And then in my second set of parentheses, I'm going to write down what I have left. What I have left is 2X plus 1. So the 2X and the plus 1 came into this one. So I only rewrote the X plus 3 1 time, and then I wrote down what I have left. That's it. Let's do another one. So question number 2 is reminding me that on your homework, there's one problem with a typo. So question number 2 on your homework. It's supposed to be, the second term is supposed to be 2x. And right now it doesn't have anything, but it's supposed to be squared. So look at the second term on your homework. It's supposed to be x to the third plus 2x squared. And then the rest is the same. So fix that. Go do it now so you don't forget. Pause the video, go do that now. All right, factor by grouping. For question number 2, I have groups. 4 terms, factor by grouping. And in my first group, I'm going to factor out the greatest common factor, or the GCF. So the number in front of an x, if there isn't a number, is 1. And this is actually just the same. If you have a 1 and a 3, the greatest number that you can divide out of 1 and 3 is a 1. So I'm going to factor out a 1. And then for this problem, I have 3 x's here and 2 x's. So the most I can pull out is 2. So x squared. And then in my second set, or my second group, I have a 2 and a 6. The greatest common factor would be 2. And it's a positive 2. Now I'm going to take my greatest common factor and I write them out into the front. I don't have to write the 1 in front of the x squared. I can just write x squared. And then I need to write down in parentheses what I have left. So really, I'm just taking 2 of the x's away. So if I have 3 and I take 2 away, I have x. I am not dividing out any number. 3 divided by 1 is 3. I have 2 x's and I'm taking 2 away, so I don't have any more x's. So that's actually it. I'm going to tighten up that parenthesis. Plus 2, and then I'm going to put in parentheses what I have left. 2 divided by 2 is 1. And so I'm just going to put 1x, or just x. And then 6 divided by 2 is 3. Remember, the goal is to get 2 sets of parentheses that are the same. And so I got that. X plus 3 and x plus 3, they are the same. And so when they're the same, I pull them out in front. It's a GCF. I pull it out in front and I write it one time. And then I write down what I have left. X squared plus 2. So remember, the second part came from that. So I write my GCF, the parentheses that are identical, I write it one time, and then I write down what I have left. Ta-da! Let's do another one. I guess another 2. All right, so factor by grouping. 4 terms, I'm going to make 2 groups. So for question number 3, I have 2 groups. And I'm going to factor out the greatest common factor from each of my groups. So for my first group, I feel like this is the third problem I've done with 1 and 3. So 1 and 3, the biggest thing I can pull out is a 1, biggest number. And then I have 2 x's and 1 x. So the most I can pull out is just an x. For my second group, 4 and 12, the biggest number that goes into 4 and 12 is 4. The 12 doesn't have an x, so I'm not going to pull out an x. So GCF always gets rewritten out into the front. So I'm left with x, and then once I divide out that 1x, if I have 2 and I divide out 1, so I just have 1x left. And then 3 divided by 1 is 3. And x, and I'm dividing out an x, I don't have x anymore for the 3. For my second group, I'm pulling out a 4. It's a positive 4. I can put positive. So I'm pulling out a positive 4. You always have to have a sign right here. You can't just have a 4 without the plus sign. 4 divided by 4 is 1. And so I just have a 1x, or just x. And then 12 divided by 4 is 3. So plus 3. Yay! My goal is to get 2 sets of parentheses that are exactly the same. And I did. So 2 sets of parentheses that are exactly the same. That's my GCF. I write it one time out in the front. And so I write out into the front x plus 3. And then I write down what's left, x plus 4. So the x plus 4 came from here. The x plus 3 came from my GCF, and then the x plus 4 came from what was left. Let's do another one. This is our first one that has any kind of negatives. So what you want to check for each time is that the signs match and that they're in a pattern. And so this one was all positives, so you really don't have to think about signs. This one is positive, negative, and then my second group is also positive, negative. So I don't have to think about the signs quite yet. So if the signs match up for each group, then you're good. So there's both positive and then a negative. So that's okay. I've got my 2 groups together. When I take a look at my first group, the biggest number that can go into 3 and 6 is 3. And then the most amount of x's I can pull out if I have 3 and then I have 2. 2. So x squared. For my second group, what is the GCF with 5 and 10? 5. And the 10 doesn't have an x, so I can't pull out an x. GCF always writes out into the front. So I get 3x squared, and then I'm going to figure out what I have left. 3 divided by 3 is 1. I have 3 x's, and I'm dividing out 2, so I have 1x left. 6 divided by 3 is 2, and it's negative, so negative 2. I have 2 x's, and I'm dividing out 2 x's. And so x squared divided by x squared is just 1, so we don't have to write x anymore. Plus 5, I know it's positive because we didn't factor out a negative, so plus 5. And then I'm going to write down what I get after I divide out 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1, so I'm just left with x. Negative 10 divided by 5 is negative 2. Yay! I've got 2 sets of parentheses that are exactly the same. That's the goal. The goal is to get 2 sets of parentheses that are exactly the same, and that's a GCF, and a GCF gets written out into the front. So I get x minus 2 out in front, just like we did up here. Anytime you pull out a GCF, it goes in the front. This is a GCF, it goes into the front. And so now I write down what I have left. 3x squared plus 5. So this is what I had left. So GCF was x minus 2. And then I was left with 3x plus 5 that comes over here. Two more problems and that's it for notes. Did you notice that there's not a backside? You're welcome. So last 2 problems that we're going to do. When you start to notice that the numbers are big, and keep in mind that looking at other problems, the leading coefficient here is a 1, but like here it's not. So this isn't like the problems that we did last class, where if there's a leading coefficient, it's a good indicator that there's a GCF. Sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't. So my indication is usually once I start dealing with bigger numbers, and I'll check to see, maybe I can make those numbers smaller by factoring out a GCF right at the beginning. And so if I take a look over here, 9, 36, 6, and 24. There's one number that can divide into all of those. Think about it. What's one number that can divide into all of those? Three. So if you thought of three, good job. GCF always goes out into the front. So 3 goes out in the front. And then I'm going to divide everything by 3. 9 divided by 3 is 3. 36 divided by 3 is 12, and it's negative. So negative 12x. 6 divided by 3 is 2. Negative 24 divided by 3 is negative 8. All right, still have 4 terms factor by grouping. So we're going to factor by grouping, and we just have a GCF out in front along for the ride. It's going to be part of our answer. So for my first group, I'm going to figure out what's the biggest number that can go into both 3 and 12. 3, good job. So I have x squared and I have x. The most amount of x's that I can pull out is just 1. Over here, the biggest number that can divide into 2 and 8, 2. Also, I forgot to check for signs. So looking at the problem, I have positive, negative for the first group and positive, negative for the second group. So they have to match. They have to match, or else you won't end up with 2 sets of parentheses that are the same. So the signs match. I'm good. I can keep rolling. So remember, GCF always gets written out into the front. And so when I rewrite this, the 3 is along for the ride. It doesn't go anywhere. So I have 3x out into front, and I'm going to write down what I have left. And then I have my second set of parentheses with plus 2. Okay, so factor by grouping. I'm dividing out 3x for my first group. 3 divided by 3 is 1. X divided by x squared. I have 2 x's, and I'm taking 1 away, so I'm left with just an x. It's negative, so I can put the negative there. 12 divided by 3 is 4, and these x's will cancel or dissolve into 1. So 12 divided by 3 is 4. So I have a good indication of what should be in this set of parentheses. Think about it. What should be there? Yes, x minus 4 should be there. If we do our math correctly, it should be an x minus 4. Okay, let's try. 2 divided by 2 is 1, and so I'm left with just an x. Negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4. All right, 2 sets of parentheses that are exactly the same. I did it right. So now I'm going to rewrite. My GCF is now x minus 4. It gets rewritten out in the front, but I still have the 3 there. So don't lose the 3. It's along for the ride. So I have x minus 4, and then I write down what I have left. 3x plus 2. And the 3x plus 2 came from this. So I got the 3. It's the GCF from the very beginning of the problem. I've got my last GCF, x minus 4. And then I write down what I have left, 3x plus 2. And here's a hint. The things that I have in pink are the things that show up in the answer. And so let's take a look at the whole problem. So I've got a 3. There's a 3 in the beginning of my answer. I have a 3x and a positive 2. That's in my answer. I have underlined in pink an x minus 4. That's also in my answer. So all the GCFs kind of come out, and those are my answers. If I wanted to check myself, I could work backwards and multiply all this out. I could use FOIL or a box to multiply this, and then my answer, I could multiply it by 3. The next problem, when I see 20 and 30, I'm thinking, God, there's probably a GCF in here. Those are big numbers. And so as I look through 4, 20, 6, and 30, what is one number that can divide into all of those values? Two. Job. So out into the front is going to be a 2. It's going to be along for the ride. It's written in pink. It's going to be part of my instant answer. So I got a 2. Now I'm going to rewrite everything dividing out a 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. Negative 20 divided by 2 is negative 10. Negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. 30 divided by 2 is 15. All right, from here, 4 terms, factor by grouping. So I'm going to set up 2 groups. In my first group, 2 and 10. What's the GCF? What's the biggest number that can divide into both 2 and 10? 2. Good job. I have x squared and an x. So what's the most amount of x's that I can divide out? X. Good job. Oh, I didn't check my signs. So I have a plus, minus, or positive, positive, negative, and then negative, positive. That doesn't match. My 2 groups have to have the same signs in the same order. And so one thing that I notice is that over here, I'm going to have to divide out a negative so that I can make the signs match. So the biggest number that can divide into both 3 and 15, hopefully you already thought of that. It should be a 3, but I'm going to have to pull it out and make it negative. And the 15 doesn't have an x, so I'm not pulling out an x. All right, my next step, 2. And then I'm going to have 2x, and then I'm going to, I forgot to draw my arrows. These are going to come out into front. I'm going to write down what I have left. This time I have a minus 3. I think it's our first problem that we've actually had a negative, where we pulled out a negative. And so again, I knew I needed to pull out a negative because my signs didn't match up. I had plus, minus, and it should be plus, minus again. So if they don't match up, you probably have to divide out a negative. All right, when I divide out my GCF for my first group, 2 divided by 2 is 1. I have x squared and I'm dividing out an x, so I just have 1x left. Negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5. And x divided by x is 1, so I don't need to write it. All right, my first set of parentheses is x minus 5. If I do it correctly, my second set will also be x minus 5. Let's see. Negative 3 divided by negative 3 is 1. So I'm just left with x. I'm off to a great start. 15 divided by negative 3 is going to be negative 5. We are so smart. All right, I ended up with 2 sets of parentheses that are the same. That means I did something right. So now that is my new GCF. And remember, everything that is pink or underlined here is going to be part of my answer. So I've got the 2 out in front because it is along for the ride. My new GCF is x minus 5. And then I write down what I have left, 2x minus 3. So this came from that. So again, I want to point out that part of my answer is the 2 as my first GCF. This is my second part of my GCF. And this is my third GCF. Those are all parts of my answer. 2, 2x minus 3, and an x minus 5. Okay, go on to do the homework. Remember that there was a typo on question number 2 that you need to make the second term squared. So it should be x squared and not just x. And make good choices. You've got the rest of class to begin your homework. Please make sure that you go check with the sub on the answers. And I can't wait to see you guys when I get back. That is it.